The SM Media Podcast Network.
Let's go.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of Golf Talk right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike. It is always a delight to be your host, and I am joining you on Monday night where I think we're both pretty shattered, but what a phenomenal end to what was a tough test. To join me as always to recap what was a grueling but enjoyable major, it's a pleasure to welcome Andy Fullen.
Hi Scott. Thanks for inviting me on again. It was a pretty grueling week all in. But yeah, some finish to the event that we'll talk about, I'm sure. But some week.
We didn't obviously do anything for the PGA. We'll touch on the PGA. We'll do a wee bit in kind of Scotty Scheffler and talk about his kind of victory in the PGA when we get to that. We'll start obviously US Open. A very, very tough week. I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I would say, for anyone that doesn't know, we're both based in Ayrshire. There's a lot of tough courses in Ayrshire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is Oakmont the toughest course in the world?
Certainly probably up there. Just looking at the score and stuff like that. But I think listening to some of the comments, reading some of the comments with some of the players, and they've basically been saying like they could basically hold a US Open there anytime. You know, it's always pretty much ready. So that kind of gives you a feel of how tough it is. I mean, a lot of these venues, I mean, the US Open venue is always tough, let's face it. You know, or the majority of them are always tough. That's the whole nature of the beast when it comes to the US Open. But I think they take a bit of time to kind of prepare it and get the way they want it. But that comment certainly opened my eyes. You think, no, this place probably is as tough as it can be. And you only need to see the winning scores there.
Yeah.
Previously, you know. I mean, you think 156 players in the field this week, all the benefits that you get with modern technology, everything like that, and it took a 65-foot putt in the last hole for one person to be under par, you know. So it's I think that speaks for itself, really.
And like in comparison to like kind of other kind of US Open courses, and I was hearing a lot of people in Twitter saying this is boring, this isn't what kind of modern golf should be, and I'm like, this is a kind of old-fashioned test. This is what you want the US Open to be. Like last year was different because like I don't think the US Open is like a birdie fest. The Open can be like that sometimes, but obviously famously in years gone by it's been quite tough. Like last year was pretty tough with the rain, but this is what a US Open should be. But like in comparison to like kind of other courses, like even do you remember Chambers Bay, the one Spieth one?
Yeah.
Remember that being particularly brutal? There's a type of course. Shinnecock. There's a type of course. Pebble Beach is maybe the exception because you can have a lot of joy around that, and we'll touch on a kind of 25 years since the kind of famous Pebble Beach victory. But the US Open is the one that's the people say it's the hardest to win, but it's certainly the one that it's not just your golf game. You need to be mentally switched on for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Pebble Beach is like sort of almost like America's old course, if you know what I mean. It's like a kind of as historic as we'll get over there, really, kind of thing. So that is maybe the exception. But I think you look at it, and one of the things we'll maybe touch on later, kind of talk about Scheffler, the PGA victory and stuff. But I think all the majors have got their own identity.
Yeah.
You've got like the Masters stands alone because of the golf course. You know what you're getting there. It's the tradition in an American sense. You then get the Open Championship, our event, which is real tradition. You know, it's been on the go for 150 odd years, and everything that brings. Only major outside the States, it's linked to golf, so that's got its own identity. the identity of the US Open is it's a brutal test. It always has been, and that is where they are. I think the USPG are really having a bit of an identity crisis now because they don't really know what they want. It's just a glorified PGA Tour event, really, at the moment. But I think the US Open this week was exactly the way they'd have wanted it. Look at the finish it provided. It might have been brutal. It might not have been an absolute birdie fest, but there was still scores out there if they could, kind of string it together and yeah, it's that's what you're kind of expecting. I don't think you'd want to watch it every week. If that was golf every week, you'd get a bit bored and a bit you turn off. But I think it's great sometimes just to see these guys tested, and it almost kind of makes them look kind of human rather than some of the superhuman stuff they do in the golf course all the time.
And it can throw up some winners who you maybe don't expect going in, like US Opens, like Lucas Glover's won it. There's been some names like Webb Simpson, even a couple of years ago, Wyndham Clark. You would never have thought they would win majors. And JJ Spaun wasn't. He's had a good year. Do you know what I mean? He obviously took Rory to the playoff and has massively improved. That was his first, I think, top 20 finish. He's never played in an Open, so he was going into Fort Rush as a major champion in his first appearance, which is, I don't think that will happen very often. But
no,
it throw the kind of way the tournament. We'll get into the tournament as a whole, but it can throw up these guys who you think will never win majors, and they can just suit their game to it. And what I quite liked about JJ Spaun was he kind of set the tone in the Thursday. He was the one who got it right at the start, and he's there at the end. But it doesn't really tell the story, does it?
No, I mean, look at your start. Last night it was bogeyed 5 of the first 6 holes or something like that. Yeah. I mean, and to come back and show the character, you could say he was fortunate with the rain delay. I think I got him inside and a bit like getting a break at half time or something, going in and being able to regroup, look at maybe talk about the football and stuff. But so did everybody else get that chance, and they never, look at Sam Burns and then Adam Scott. They came out and just couldn't cope with it, whereas he really regrouped and he finished fantastically well. So I think it's had a really good couple of years. The playoff you're talking about with Rory, I mean, people forget that went to a Monday finish. If that had went on, he'd have probably won that because he was in form. So he was a bit unlucky with that, but he just seems an all-round pretty solid player. I mean, he'll probably be a shoe-in for the Ryder Cup team now for America as well. So I'd be interested to see how he does the rest of the season now. But he's up to 8th in the world or something like that now as well.
He was 156 this time last year.
Yeah, so it shows you what a fantastic, couple of years he's had, and all credit to him for for hanging about and for working so hard and taking his chances as well. I mean, you look at some other, notable players who've either still to win a major or who've never won a major. He's had his chance and he's took it, so fair play to him to that. But I think, to your point about different winners, I think that's where the kind of unpredictability of likes of the Open with the weather and stuff like that, tough side of the draw or whatever, and then you take into consideration this event with the rough and all the rest of it, and the other kind of variables. It maybe is a little bit of a leveler, for these guys. I mean, these guys are we all see how good they are week to week, but just kind of keeping it together for 4 days, and you can be right up there,
And as well, I always going about a lot the clutch mentality that you have to have at these types of venues. Like you mentioned, the bogeys 5 of the first 6. He's 2 over after 6 when he started the day 2 under. He was 3 behind Adam Scott at the 6th hole. That would put a lot of people down. Do you know what I mean? We'll get into Sam Burns. I don't think Sam Burns recovered for the shot with the puddle, which we'll get into later. Yeah. But you have to have that mentality to do what he did in the back 9. The putt. I mean, the putt at 18th obviously will be one of those who'll look back in years to come. But he made a couple of massive putts as well, just to get himself in it. And that 17th as well, he hits one of the best drives you'll see all week.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a mindset thing, and
Yeah.
you've got to admire it.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the great thing about the way it was set up was everyone could basically reach the 17th. You know, it wasn't just set up for, like, say, a longer hitter, so it gave someone like him a chance to get there, and what a tee shot he hit. You know, under, like you say, right under the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
The part of the last, it's fairy tale stuff. I mean, let's face it. Do you know? I mean, that's like.
Did Hovland help him with the line? Do you think?
I seen that kind of. Somebody said that possibly, but I mean, it's 65 feet away. Do you know what I mean? It's different if he had like a 12-footer, but I mean, the percentage chances of that going in's got to be not even, not even or 1% or something like 2% probably. So, but not like absolutely he came down the straight, hit the shots. What was he, 3 under in the back in 32 or something like that? I mean, that's phenomenal golf. Mm-hmm. You know, regardless if that's Scottish Scheffler or that's Rory, we're all over that, saying what a performance it is. So absolutely hats off to him, especially to come back from the start he had. But I know it's great to see. I mean, hopefully this will kind of launch him forward. I don't know if it will. I think you might find this is the peak of his career, but still he's done it. You know, he's a major champion. Much like I said earlier, there's a lot of probably perceived more talented and better players than him that will never say that, or certainly haven't yet.
And there's a few who obviously got a challenge going. I was saying to you off air the kind of night I had watching it. I did think after the rain delay we were in for a Monday finish. I thought, right, I'll maybe get a couple hours. And just as I kind of went to sleep, I think it was announced that the play had started. I think I woke up about maybe 12, half 12, and the first thing I did was look at the betting. And Bob McIntyre, who I don't think was anywhere near the top of the betting, he's even at any point, despite being pretty good on the opening day and pretty good yesterday, I don't think he was anywhere close to in anybody's radar. I think he was like 5-2, and I'm like, well, what has happened here? So obviously, I was like, right, I need to have a look here and see what's happened. I think when I come on, Spaun birdied the 14th, but Bob McIntyre has just got something about him now. I immediately changed from Bob not being in the radar to, right, Bob could win this. But we talk about putts. The putt he made at the 4th, the Eagle, one of the best putts you'll see, because it looks as if that doesn't hit the hole, it's going about 20 feet past. And it's just a massive, massive putt at that point. And he's just steady the whole way, and then just makes 2 really good putts at the last 2 holes, and that's him kind of 1 over. And it's unbelievable from where he was. It started 5 over after the 3rd to then finish 1 over. I mean, like, I don't think there'll be many players delighted to finish second in a US Open, but he would absolutely have took that all day.
Oh yeah,
on a Sunday.
No, definitely, especially kind of going into the last round and things like that. But I think it's such a kind of Scottish mentality thing. You know, it's like kind of plucky underdog stuff like that. I mean, he's up to 12 in the world. He's a Ryder Cup player. He's won twice on the PGA Tour. He's a proper player. You know, if that's, I don't know, type in generic PGA Tour American guy, you're saying, oh yeah, another great finisher. I think because it is close to home with us, and he is under a bit of spotlight with us, he's a proper turn into world-class player. Yeah. And it shouldn't, I mean, I just hope he takes this confidence with him. Look at this time coming into the Scottish Open. Obviously last year he won the Scottish Open, going into Troon. He also likes this time of the year. I mean, he could
high in that last report rush, by the way.
I was going to say he could be a real good bet, and like I said, it's almost this kind of, we either discount him or we kind of plucky underdog. Like I mean, there's kind of Scottish mentality. But if he's Victor Hovland, you know, you're thinking, what a player this boy is. You know, he's turned into a proper world class player, and I think he's. I just think he's a really such an underrated player. You know, he's so gutsy. He's good, but he's learning a lot more. I think go over to the States, having to relocate there didn't work out for him. He's kind of back home, he's commuting. But he's really impressive. I'm super impressed with how his career trajectory is going. He's just getting better and better.
Finished sixth at Portrush in 2019. That was his first Open appearance. That's a really good bit of form to get into. And as you say, I think there's a lot in the leaderboard who will, there's a couple that you'd say maybe did let themselves down with kind of putting and iron play and things like that we'll cover. Bob is probably the one who hasn't won, and you think he's going to build on this. You wouldn't be surprised if he can, like we say last year, what he did at the Scottish Open. I've seen a few people label him Big Shot Bob, but it is really that. We've seen in the past, like what my dad was saying yesterday, and he speaks about this all the time. Montgomery, the big thing with Montgomery was you felt he couldn't get it done in those stages. I don't think Bob's like that. I think Bob actually will thrive on that.
I think he's such an interesting character because obviously we all know where he comes from, Oban and small rural community in Scotland, and then literally trying to mix it with superstars over on the PGA Tour. That is a world away from what he's. So it has taken him a bit of time to get that, and he has. But let's face it, he's not got maybe the charisma as a lot of the players out there. He maybe doesn't look as good aesthetically as a lot of the players out there. But when it comes down to actual golfing ability, then I would take him before a lot of guys. Especially if you go to Portrush and the weather's a bit iffy and it turns out to be a bit of a grind. I don't know if he's maybe the most electrifying player that's going to maybe finish 30 under in some of the PGA Tour events, but at these proper golf events, I would certainly, I think he backs himself as well, which is really, he's kind of comfortable with who he is. He's not trying to maybe be anybody else as well. So, like I said, I'm super impressed with him, the way his career's progressing, because he's had a few setbacks as well, and but he always seems to find, like you say, find a way. And he's won twice already in a pretty short space of time, and Ryder Cup player already. He'll probably be at Bethpage now as well. He's fourth in the rankings, I think. So yeah, if it wasn't an automatic pick, I would think I would have him in my team definitely.
Yeah, I think he's an absolute shoe-in for the Ryder Cup. Another European who I think is getting there. I think, obviously, we were all very excited about Victor Hovland when he first came on the tour, and he's been. I think he's been maybe one of those that's maybe not fulfilled his potential early on and thought, right, I need to change my swing and get to that next level, and it's ended up setting him back a bit. I think he's getting there. I think what let him down yesterday was his putting and his iron play a wee bit. I just felt, because his putting isn't always the best, but I thought yesterday it was pretty poor, and I thought that kind of let him down.
He's pretty. It comes across certainly as a pretty streaky putter, and when he's good, he's very good. But yeah, I think it's usually been his kind of short game. It's been his kind of nemesis, and that's why at US Open, I think he was I heard in one of the podcasts, he was number one or number two strokes gained around about the greens and stuff like that, which is completely unusual for him. But again, you look at the setup of the golf course, the thick rough, it's maybe, you don't maybe need to be the most technically good, just it's literally hacking it out some of the time. So, but he's super talented. Talking about the contrast, some McIntyre, charisma and stuff, he's got it all. He's such a. How can you not want him to do well? And how could you actively look at Victor Hovland and not kind of want him to play well? He's just a likeable character. He's got a really, really good looking golf game, super talented. But you see that the longer it goes for these guys without breaking through, it could be, the harder it gets. We've seen it numerous times before. But he's still a young guy. But he's had his troubles. He's very much a overthinker, a bit of a tinkerer and stuff like that. And but it was good to see him play well this week. I think he was the one I thought was a kind of danger person going into the last round. I was kind of
I thought he was
half hoping as well he was going
I
to do
thought
it.
he was the winner. I thought it was, but I thought him and Burns at the start of Sunday would be the two ones that would be hard to catch. Good weeks. Tyrrell Hatton again isn't making it. Probably, I don't think he'll win a major, but I think he'll always be in about. Ortiz had a good week. Cameron Young never won in the PGA Tour, but you look at his record in majors, like he's pretty good. Like his US Open
Yeah.
record in particular, like that was his first top 10 finish, but he's done very well at the Open. Like he's tied seventh and tied ninth at the Masters. Like he is a knocking on the door player as well. Like I thought he came away quite well this week.
And he's got all the attributes. He hits it absolute miles. I don't know if it's a mentality thing with him again. He's never even won in the PGA Tour, so it's getting that kind of breakthrough. But you do kind of it's a few guys like that. Zalatoris. Obviously he's injured, but he reminds me a bit of that. There's a few guys that just do well on the big occasions, but it's just getting over the line. That's so difficult to do, and that's why for like JJ Spaun, that's obviously career changing for him, to get it done over the line with a big event like that. But he's got all the attributes as well. I love the quote. Do you see the quote from Tyrrell Hatton about when he was asked about his mentality and stuff, and he was saying about how he obviously the way he goes on, his temper and stuff. And he says, well, everybody loses their mind at a US Open. He said, so it just brings them all down to my level. He said, so I feel perfectly at home here. So I thought that was actually a really good way of looking at it from his point of view. Everyone else is going nuts. So it kind of brings him down to his level. So I thought that was quite a good wee quote.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on, obviously, there was a wee bit of controversy on the final day, obviously, was the shot at Sam Burns on the 15th.
Right.
What did you think of it? Because what interests me, I took two very different kind of views on it. I just assumed it was going to be a drop. But I think the flight of the ball is massively impacted by where it's sitting. But also look at it, if I'm Sam Burns and I'm in contention for a major, because that's the 15th hole and he's 3 over at that point. If they can maybe come off of that with par,
might make that kind of blow him out of it.
It's a massive difference. Like, where do you stand on it? Like, because from a rules perspective, first of all, like, what did you think of it?
I thought it was harsh. To be fair, I thought if I'm him, and that's why I asked for a second opinion. I mean, there's undoubtedly, is it temporary water they call it now?
Yeah.
It's not casual water. There's definitely water there. So looking at it from a player's point of view, then I think, in another way, I think he handled it really well. Yeah. Even in after his post round, he handled it really well. And in that situation, but I think it was. I don't know whether it was just. I've not actually seen a clarification of why it wasn't really given relief, but I would have certainly. I mean, there's certainly water there. For me, I would have been pretty upset if I didn't get relief in that situation. So I thought it was pretty harsh, but like I said, he handled it really well.
I thought the commentators as well. Like, again, like, I don't know what you think of the kind of commentator, like the whole kind of the TV experience for that type of tournament. But I felt that like a rules chief, not a rules chief, but a rules expert could have been there to explain that, because I thought they did not have a clue what was going on. And to be fair, like it's a difficult thing to kind of ask just a comment, like any sort of commentator, any ex-player to have. But I think a wee rules chief maybe going forward would maybe be good to have on that for that type of thing.
On the only other kind of playing a wee bit devil's advocate, if you are Sam Burns and you are forced to play that shot, I mean, it's easy for me to say sitting here, but I think in that situation, trying to hit the same shot
Yes.
as he would when it's if it's a perfect lie. That's maybe where he's went wrong. I mean, maybe literally just clubbing up and just almost try to kind of just take something off it and just basically you even get it in front of the green or anywhere round about the green, trying to execute the same shot as he would if it was in a perfect lie. That's possibly a wee bit of a criticism against him, but it's still pretty. I still. I think a lot of credit to him again. I keep saying it, but a lot of players maybe wouldn't have taken it in the way he took it. But still thought it was harsh. But that's my only kind of maybe criticism about him there.
Because if he just kind of like plays it conservative there, right? Because he's only a shot back at that point because Spawn's even par. If you never know. I just felt at that point after that double bogey, I think he felt
it was over.
That's it, and you never know if his luck would have changed because it was, even though he was bogey and stuff, but like Adam Scott was fist pumping a bogey. Do you know what I mean? Like it was a bogey fest, but you just never know if he just maybe parred that even bogey that would it have changed his mindset? Would it have changed the other?
And I get it. It's all these tiny little percentages, or marginal gains, as they call it, that adds up to. Again, you go back to the winner. He had all that adversity. I mean, look at the shot he hit the second, he hit the pin. I mean, he made a colossal mess of the first. Lucky to basically make bogey. Actually hits two great shots down the second, and he's totally screwed and hits the pin and comes back 60 yards. But he never, when you looked at him, he never. Obviously, inside he was, feeling it, but I just thought he controlled it, and that's the tiny wee marginal gains that guys like Sam Burns, Victor Hall, and Cameron. They maybe got to. They might never have it, but they've got to try and learn that to win. It's so difficult, and I think in that moment, you must be thinking that when you're making bogeys, and obviously you can see the other scores, but there's got to be that in the back of your mind. I've got to do something here. I've got to try and win this. I've got to try and, instead of just like your point, just basically get it, play it conservatively, give yourself a chance for a par. If you don't make a par, it's a bogey, and you move on. You're still there. It's just life comes at you fast, I would imagine, in those kind of circumstances.
Really good week for Adam Scott. He's 96 straight major appearance.
Aye.
And rolling back the years, like, I don't know how you feel about this, right? Because I've always had this sort of mindset, like, if a player's won one, I'm okay with them not winning another. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I always like to see new major winners. I think that's what I quite liked about Spaun, and even like when Xander Schauffele won last year. I always like a guy who deserves that major. And look, Adam Scott, like, a lot of people would probably have been on his side because of the rolling back the years, like an old timer, but just being competitive is just a result for me, because 96 major appearances in a row is phenomenal.
It's incredible. I know. It made me laugh though, because when he was sitting, they were saying about he's 45, and I mean, I was like, I'm 45. I was like, Jesus Christ. That was a bit of a wake up call when he kept talking about that as grizzled veteran and all that. I'm like, geez. But no, he's just such a. I mean, it gets bandied about a lot in golf, obviously, but he's just such a class act. He's just a very private person as well. Doesn't do many interviews. Swings it like an absolute dream. It's just no changed in 25 years. His golf swing. He's still absolutely sending it as well. I mean, he's 186 mile an hour ball speed and stuff like that. It's incredible. But I think he's just a very likeable, all round, nice guy. And you go back to, again, he's his adversity when he was 4 shots clear with 40 go at Lytham, and Hills pipped him, and
I backed him that year.
Well, and then he went on to win Augusta, So I just think like some guys like him, Rose, would be another major would be nice.
Yeah.
But it's good that they've got. I think there's got to be a degree of satisfaction when you get that, and a degree of relief as well when you've had that kind of career. And that's what I said earlier, when the longer it goes on without winning one, the more the monkey's on your back, kind of thing for these guys.
Mm-hmm. We'll start, obviously, we'll kind of link in the PGA with this as well, because finishing tied 7th along with Sam Burns was Jon Rahm and the PGA winner Scottie Scheffler. PGA, I thought Scottie Scheffler in the 3rd and 4th round, the way he kind of dealt with that wee struggle was phenomenal. The other end of that was Jon Rahm was there with him and went the complete opposite direction. But then this week you felt Rahm was. I thought the first round, Rahm's got this, and then he just completely struggled 2nd and 3rd day. Then comes back and hits a 67. What people are saying is with Jon Rahm, is he just complete? Is that just a kind of an issue he's got until he wins? But I don't. I still look at Rahm and think you're just as good as you were 2 years ago. Like, there's no difference at all. Do you think there's something missing with Rahm at the moment?
The easy thing is to say because he went to live, blah blah blah, and I don't. There might be a semblance of truth in that. The fact that he's maybe, they came up with the stat about his, was it 20 top 10s in a row or something. Really, it's not really a stat, really, when you think about it. But for someone at his level, when you look at other guys like Cam Smith and stuff who just fell off a cliff since going to live, he's a different type of character. I don't really. It's possibly just, again, going back to those marginal gains about the competitiveness. Maybe has a tiny wee effect on him, but he's still he's still top 5 player in the world comfortably. If not better than that. But I think it's he's got to really try it, and almost he's only maybe got 4 events a year he has to really kind of get up for, and that's maybe where the Live experiment does have a wee bit of an effect on him. But absolutely class act. I think at the PGA it was literally a case of, I remember that putt in about 14 or 15 that I don't know how ever went in. And then it was a case of he just tried to make birdies. He just couldn't attack the last few holes, and he did. He basically finished he doubled the last 2 holes. So I think his finish was a bit worse than what it appeared to be. But it's good to see him playing well again. Go back to the Ryder Cup here. You want these guys firing for us to go over there and do it. You're going to need a guy like Jon Rahm to be at his absolute best going to Bethpage. So it's good to see him playing well. And again, Portrush, he's got a decent enough Open record. I would almost expect him to be an Open champion one day. So again, he's coming into form at a good time for
that. And kind of running out of things about Scottie Scheffler, because I'm kind of going by the kind of where's he at this week, because he was coming into this in unbelievable form. Do you know what I mean? 3 out of the last 4 tournaments. PGA, I remember texting you in the PGA. I think there was a tweet going about, if he plays well, nobody can touch him. If he plays average, he can still win. And that kind of sums him up.
Aye.
I think we'll let him down this week as the putting enemy came back a wee bit.
Certainly yesterday. The amount of chances he had yesterday. Ultimately, with Spaun finishing under par, it was. He started the day 4 over. You'd had to. I don't think anybody was really shooting 5 under yesterday, even him. But he certainly was threatening. A couple under, even getting in the house at kind of 1-2 over, and he just couldn't make a putt at all. He missed a couple of tiddlers coming in, but again, it's one of those weeks he's not really. He's kind of shot himself in the foot really the first round. Pretty steady since then, but he still finished tied 7th, and he still beat 149 other guys. Do you know what I mean? It's just his consistency is just utterly ridiculous. Even at the Masters, what he finished tied 4th at the Masters or tied 5th at the Masters or something.
He was nowhere near his best.
It was nowhere. And that's. He's just an absolute machine. But I thought as well he's getting a bit animated on there's some footage in the range with his coach and stuff, and
I was quite.
It just shows you how I mean, his caddy spoke about him before, saying no, he's just the most competitive guy. He doesn't come across that way, but
No.
he is. That's what keeps him going. It's just winning. He wants to beat everybody. And again, another kind of pretty quiet week. Although he being overwhelming favourite coming in, I'd be disappointed, but it's still a tied 7th finish.
What do you think of him at Portrush?
It's probably the only kind of links golf is maybe the only thing. I mean, I think he's had a top 10 in Open or tied 10th or
But
something.
finished 7th last year, I think.
7th, sorry, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there you go. He's
And he was
probably got a
dire one. I think it was a Saturday. I think he was dire.
I think it might. That's maybe the only kind of wee question mark is maybe links. Kind of golf. He's never won in links. We don't play that many events on links, to be fair. But I just don't think you can rule him out anywhere. I just think he's that. He's just not got any weakness other than he's putting. But again, you think slower greens, flatter greens at an open venues would suit him better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but when you don't maybe have to be as wary of his speed or breaks or something. I mean, generally, open greens are easier to put on because they're flatter and they're slower, you know, for these guys once they get adjusted. It just depends on the side of the draw. I think a bit kind of boned at Troon, I think, with the side of the draw he was on. So if he gets a good side of the draw and he plays well, he'll be there or thereabouts probably.
Rory McIlroy finished tied for 19th. I don't think we'll be talking about that for a while, but we'll probably spend a bit of time on this. Rory McIlroy's kind of war with the media has been quite interesting because for those that maybe don't know what we're talking about, this is all kind of started from the kind of non-conforming driver thing, which a lot of people will really get. But apparently the kind of issue was, I'm just going by what's been said. Apparently that story was leaked, and he didn't do any media that week, and then he didn't do any media until yesterday or Saturday, I think it was. And from where we were kind of 2 months ago sitting here, where Rory McIlroy was on Jimmy Fallon, he was, I mean, he was the talk of the sporting world. It's just been a weird couple of months, but with the kind of benefit of hindsight, was it always going to be after getting that highest of high?
I don't know. I certainly never seen it coming. I thought it would almost be the opposite.
Yeah.
It would almost be like without a care in the world now, you know, kind of bouncing around. If I play well, great. If I don't care. I've won the Grand Slam thing. But I don't know if everything, the whole driver thing's a really bizarre one for me. I mean, obviously, you know, background in golf yourself and stuff as well. I mean, I totally understand how we've all got favourite putter, favourite club, favourite driver, absolutely. But you know what the manufacturers are like now. I mean, how TaylorMade can't find them a driver.
That's what I don't get. Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's like
I think Sheffer had the same issue, I think, but I think they tweaked it or something in the day.
It did, but I just think maybe Sheffer's mindset is just not really to let it bother him quite as much. I don't know what the thing is. Maybe there's obviously stuff going on that we're not privy to, and he may have issues with certain people in the media or with the USGA that has leaked it. He is the biggest story in golf, you know, after that, and maybe he sees it as trying to kind of undermine his achievement. I don't know if it's something like that or. But it's certainly a bizarre turn of events. But even by not talking about it, he's making it a bigger issue. That's the problem.
There was a story coming out. I don't know if you've seen this, but it was just a story I was reading earlier about, like, obviously the kind of famous chat that they're kind of moving to Wentworth. His family are kind of moving it. And there was a story coming out apparently that's very much one sided. Now again, where I hate talking about speculating about family life and things like that, but that can have an impact on anybody, and that's not a coincidence. And again, like I've mentioned my dad again, but we were talking about it yesterday, and I says to him, he says, why do you think he's not talking to the media? And he was like, well, you've kind of not been able to keep him away from the mics for the whole live thing. And I'm like, well, yes, but there's also, when you do that, the media then feel an obligation, like he's going to talk constantly, and there might be a time where he's just, I mean, he went through a divorce last year, do you know what I mean? Like, a divorce.
Almost a divorce.
You've no idea what that impact that has on him, and like obviously moving sticks, and you don't know what the kind of impact is on that. And I think the Port Rush, though, I think it'll be the media darling again, because I just think that whole environment, I think it's impossible for him not to be.
I was going to say, he almost has to be, because he can't go back to his homeland. I mean, it's a crowning of a hero going back over there. He'll be absolutely mobbed. I mean, it'll be 10 deep when following him, as it would be anyway, but especially a homecoming for him. So I just find the whole thing, even his attitude, like say, when he said, what do you expect to get out of like your final round? And he says, hopefully round in under 4.5 hours and just get out of here, kind of thing.
And he has a 67. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
I know, but it's a whole kind of. Nobody's winning out of this. The media aren't getting what they want. He's been made to look like someone he's not really.
And he's not the sort of guy that hits a tee box. Like, that's not him.
It's bizarre.
But weird, isn't it?
And that's what kind of leads me to think there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not just talking to the media, behaving like that. It's I don't, whether it is maybe a respect thing, and he expected to come out of Augusta and be absolutely revered, which he was. But then the driver story came out. But he's added fuel to that by taking this. I mean, Scheffler was the same. Scheffler, when he was asked about it, he said, he said, my driver failed as well. He said, we kind of knew it was at the limit, and totally squashed the issue. It was nobody asked him again. I know there's been a few people that are ill-informed that don't understand the whole theory or process behind the driver test and all that, to say, did he, was he cheating? Did he use a driver? I mean, it's nonsense, because it's negligible, the distance, the gains they get anyway. But whether he's just taking that to heart or whatever, I don't know. But it's bizarre behaviour, it really is.
Yeah, and it's like, as well, like it is the sort of thing, is it, to try and push the regulations to be tightened. Now that's fine, but I don't think that's the way to go about it. And is it a case of, because he has been the face of the kind of anti-live movement, maybe sometimes not to his own good, is this the way to kind of go to the PGA and go like this? Listen, I've done this for years, for so long. Like, I want a wee bit of regulation tightening. I just don't think that's the way. It never works.
I think if Rory McIlroy, the stature he has in the game, if he came out and said, after his driver, had been deemed illegal, if he had come out and said, fair enough, he said, it was a bit of a pain, it set me back a little bit. In my opinion, everyone's driver should be tested in a major week. Then that would have been a narrative. People would have said, "Oh, Rory said this. Why isn't it?
Yeah.
Why isn't this happening?" And then you get stuff done, not by going in the huff and, what you say, smashing tee markers and just not talking to the media. It's just crazy. I just don't get it. I'm with you. I definitely think there's something in the background. Maybe it's home life, or I don't know. There's something going on anyway that's affecting him.
But in terms of, obviously, the whole US Open, like, it is one of the toughest tests, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that. 25 years this week was Tiger Woods' perfection at Pebble Beach, winning by 15 shots. Like, before that, kind of to wrap up in an unbelievable moment. Like, I don't think we'll ever see that again. And just watching it back, like, how incredible was that to see him do that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, was it? I can't remember who was second. Was it Vanner maybe second or something? It's one he's on like 3 over, and he was 12 under.
12 under.
It's like you say, it's unbelievable. I don't think you'll ever see the like again. I mean, Scheffler gets compared to Woods because of his consistency and his dominance, but nobody's as electric as he was. I mean, to keep going as well, to be 4, 5, 6, 7 shots late, and to keep going, want to win by 15 shots. I mean, it's just absolutely.
Jimenez and Els were tied for second.
Jimenez, I knew it was one of the kind of veterans now, but just a phenomenal performance. Just like I say, we'll probably, you said, sorry, we'll never see the likes of that again. But that's just who he was in his heyday. He was just absolutely electric. I think last night in the American coverage, when went to the rain delay, they showed the 2008 US Open, and it's quite funny seeing a lot of the comments on X talking about, just they went from the present day to come on, Tiger, let's get it done and all that. You seen that kind of thing. It's quite funny to see that.
I remember that was a Monday playoff. I remember the Monday. I think we were off school, if I remember. I can't remember that I was I played 18 at Belial that day, and then went home and watched the playoff. And all the talk was Tiger's. Do you remember the crunch? I can't remember what hole it was. What out the rough, and you're like, how's he even able to stand? And
incredible. Against Rocco immediate as well.
But... Yeah, but it shows you, obviously, again, Rocco immediately, it shows you the US Open, how unique it is. But what a week, Andy. Thank you very much for joining me as always. The next time you will hear us will be an Open preview where we will get set in Portrush, mate. Thank you very much as always, mate. I've enjoyed that.
No bother. No, it was good. Yeah, good to recap a good week, a brutal week at Oakmont. It's good to see them getting tested for a wee change.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for tuned in. We will see you all soon. Thank you.